Hello wonderful person, this is Anton, and in today's video we're going to be taking a look at the 5 brightest stars in our night sky. Of course, Sun is not included in that list. We're going to take a look at this scientific fact behind those stars, we're going to find out what's in those systems, and we're more specifically are going to discover their significance in various human cultures, and possibly take a look at any planet that might exist in those systems as well. Anyway, let's learn about those 5 stars and welcome to What the Math. And let's begin our adventure right here on Earth, and we're going to go to the first brightest star out there. This is a very famous star by the name of Sirius. It's about 8.6 light years away from us, and it's actually one of our nearest neighbors. Let's actually escape our solar system, point our imaginary spaceship at Sirius, and go check it out. Now, I've actually talked about this star previously, and I've discussed it in a lot of detail, mentioning some of the cultural significance that this star has to a group of people known as Dogon. This is the a people in Africa that actually worship this star to the point where some scientists believed that maybe they know something about it that we don't, specifically something related to aliens visiting our planet Earth. So do check out that video in the link you see on the screen right now, because it's kind of interesting and gives you a perspective on what we know about Sirius and what people have known about Sirius for many thousands of years. So here is Sirius, and as you see, it's actually not just one star, but it's a binary system. And what's interesting here is that the larger star, Sirius A, is actually the one that we see the most. This is the brighter star that we see, and it's basically an incredibly bright star that is about 2 times the mass of Sun, and it's only about 200 million years old, and it's already very bright because it's actually a blue star. If I click on it, it's a star that kind of looks like this. Now in this simulation, it's known as a white main sequence star, and it resembles our Sun, but it's obviously about 2 times the mass and is a lot brighter than our Sun as well. And unlike other nearby stars to our system, this is actually one of the brightest, one of the most massive ones, because the majority of our neighboring stars are actually red dwarfs. And this star is, you can kind of see the partner passing by nearby. This star is known as a dog star because in many cultures, the constellation where it's located kind of resembles a dog. So in English, we often refer to this as Canis Majoris, which is the dog constellation. So this is known as the dog star, and its companion, Sirius B, is often referred to as the pup, the little dog. This is Sirius B, and it's actually, interestingly, a white dwarf. So these 2 stars used to be very massive blue type stars, and several million years ago, its companion expanded, lost its outer shell, and became a white dwarf that I'm going to show you in a second by zooming into it as well. So this white dwarf is basically a representation of what the future of our Sun will be like as well in about 5 to 6 billion years. So our Sun will also become a white dwarf similar to this, a star that's only about 6 to 8,000 kilometers in radius. Basically the size of a terrestrial planet similar to Earth. Now, we're going to go to the next star, so if you want to learn more about Sirius, check out the video I made about a year and a half ago about Sirius and the Dogon people. Let's go to star number 2, and this is called Canopus. Canopus is actually very large. And not only is it large, it's also very bright, and it's the farthest star on this list. It's at a distance of about 310 light years away from planet Earth. So in comparison to 8 light years away, that's ridiculously far. And this is a white supergiant. It's a star that's very massive, very bright, and very powerful. Now, in many culture, Canopus is actually used as a navigation star, and for this reason, it's actually named after famous navigators in pretty much every culture. And in Greek culture, Canopus was a navigator for King Menelaus, king of Sparta, and thus, because the star was used for navigation, they decided to name it after that particular person. So this is also actually known as Alpha Carina because it's in constellation of Carina. And it's also the largest star on this list at about 71 times the radius of the sun. So basically, if you were to place this in our solar system, it would cover Mercury almost completely. So this particular star is also very bright. It's about 10,000 times as bright as our sun, even though it might not appear as bright here because I decreased the luminosity. In reality, it's super, super, super bright. And its surface temperature is about 7,000 degrees Celsius. So it's definitely very powerful, very bright, and very massive. It's essentially what you would call a white giant. But we don't really know much else about it because it's so far away, mostly because it's hard to actually detect any planets or any other objects at this distance. Alright, let's move on to object number 3 in terms of brightness, and this is something that is very, very famous, very well known, but something that has actually changed its name in the last few years. This is an object known as Rigel Centaurus. Now, Rigel Centaurus is more commonly known as Alpha Centauri. And here it is. So this is the third brightest object, and this is also a binary star, or according to some astronomers, a trinary star, because there might be actually 3 stars in the system, third being Proxima Centauri, the closest star to us. But we're going to assume that this is actually just a binary system with 2 stars, very similar to our sun as a matter of fact. The brightest one is Alpha Centauri, or Rigel Centaurus A. This is the star we're looking at right now. This is a yellow dwarf, approximately 1.1 masses of sun, so about 10% more massive than the sun, a little bit brighter, a little bit more hot, but other than that, it's very sun-like. And its companion is about 90% as bright and as massive as our sun, known as Alpha Centauri B or Rigel Centaurus B. And this is what it looks like in Space Engine. Now, interestingly, in Space Engine, this is also a system that has many planets. As you can see, there's at least one orbiting here, creating a very beautiful comet. This is, I believe, a scorched desert. Let's actually take a look at it. It's very, very close to the second star, Rigel Centaurus B, and it's creating this beautiful comet-like tail behind it because it's basically being scorched by the star. Now, what's really interesting is that we did discover an object that might appear as a planet around the system, but we're not really sure. It hasn't really been confirmed, and some scientists still deny that it's actually a planet. So there might be a planetary system here, and because these 2 stars are very sun-like, there's actually a high possibility for even terrestrial planets if they do exist. But in Space Engine, this is actually the closest system to us that not only has terrestrial planets, but may even have life on it. And this is actually a very, very famous star that has been exploited in many different science fiction movies, including the movie called Avatar. This is where Avatar takes place. It was actually around a moon, around a gas giant in the system, which unfortunately doesn't exist in this game. But what's interesting is that if you actually use an older version of Space Engine, the one that's maybe a year old or so, this system also used to be full of different planets, and there was even a planet that had life on it. I actually made a video about it previously, and you can check out this in the link that you see on the screen. And the planet was actually very interesting. Unfortunately, it was removed from the newer versions because the newer Space Engine tries to be more realistic. So here we only have one planet that is a scorched desert that seems to be terrestrial, but too hot for life. Anyway, so this was planet or star number 3. Let's go to number 4, known as Arcturus. And Arcturus is also designated as Alpha Bootes. And as you can see, it has a lot of stuff orbiting around it in Space Engine. There's a lot of planets, a lot of really interesting asteroids very close to the star. And being the fourth brightest object, it's actually part of what's known as a spring triangle, along with two other stars known as Spica and then Ebola. This star is about 36 light years away from us, and it's a red giant that's about 7.1 billion years old, and it's about maybe 8% more massive than our sun, but it's about 25 times as large as our sun, suggesting that it's entering the red giant stage of its life. It's expanding like the sun will at some point, where basically the hydrogen at its core is gone, so it's only burning hydrogen on the shell here, and it's going to start burning helium soon, and it's already about 110 times brighter as the sun. So even though we haven't really detected any planets here, it's very likely that when this enters the red giant stage, it's going to swallow a lot of these planets very close to it, making the system very, very difficult to survive in, because it's basically going to change completely. Now, there was a speculation that there might have been actually a real planet about 12 times mass of Jupiter before, but today scientists think that this was just speculation, and statistically it might be just the way that this star behaves. It might not have been caused by a planet. But in Space Engine, if you actually enable orbits, you'll notice that there's a lot of planets here. There's tons and tons of planets that have been simulated in the game, and some of them are very beautiful. They're all very hot though. But here's an example of a purple scorched desert. A planet that seems to be Earth-like, has a very strong atmosphere of 9 atmospheres, and also a temperature of about 600 degrees Celsius. Here's another one, known as Arcturus 5, that also looks very, very similar and has similarly hot conditions. And the last planet on the list here has relatively comfortable, or I guess somewhat comfortable, 70 degrees Celsius temperature, which is similar to what Earth was like 4 billion years ago. But there's almost no atmosphere here, so obviously there's no water either. It does have a really cool moon orbiting around it though, that's relatively large, and you can kind of see it appear right there. This is a pretty cool looking warm Selena with 65 degrees Celsius temperature. So this is what Arcturus is like. And if you've watched the 2016 sci-fi movie Passengers, this is actually the star that Starship Avalon used to slingshot around to basically increase its speed a little bit on its final destination in the movie. And this, in the movie, it took it about 31 years to reach this star because they were moving really, really fast. This star is about 36 light years away, so whatever technology they used for propellant, it doesn't exist yet. And the other interesting thing about Arcturus, the star, is that this is actually a star that was famously used during the 1933 Chicago World Fair to open it up. Basically, the light from the star was used to begin the fair because apparently it was thought that the light from Arcturus has started its journey around the time of the previous Chicago's World's Fair that occurred in 1893, although in reality, the light actually started traveling about 3 years later at 1896. But the fact that the light from the star was actually able to start a World's Fair in 1933 is a pretty spectacular achievement. Anyway, moving on to the next star, and the last star on the list, Vega. Now, Vega is also known as Alpha Lyrae, and it's about 25 light years away from us. But what's interesting about this star is that it's spinning really, really fast. So if I were to click on the system here, you would see that it's kind of egg-shaped because it's actually spinning on its axis, creating a very oblong shape. And this area is a little bit brighter than this area, and this is the actual point from which we're seeing this star. So for this reason, it appears a little bit brighter than it would if we were looking at it from the sideways. There's quite a lot of interesting things about Vega, and this is actually one of the most studied stars ever. And it's actually used for various stellar observations, stellar comparisons, and it has been photographed many, many, many times over the last few decades. It's only about a tenth of the age of the sun, so it's only about 500 million years old, but since it's 2.1 times more massive than the sun, it's actually at the same sort of midpoint of life as our sun is. So basically, this star has already lived out about half of its life. And so it only has about maybe 500 million years left in it. In other words, it's actually going to do what our sun will do a lot sooner. Now, unfortunately, this star has very low metallicity, suggesting that maybe, just maybe, it doesn't really have many terrestrial planets around it. And we haven't really discovered any planets around it either, but we have discovered a very unusual circumstellar disk or dust disk, similar to our Kuiper's belt around our sun. Now, in this game, it doesn't actually appear, unfortunately. You won't see any interstellar disk orbiting around it. But because of this disk, this star has sort of gained fame, and similar stars that have been discovered are now known as Vega-like stars. So these are the stars that will have Kuiper belt-like belt around them at a distance of about maybe 60 to 80 astronomical units from the star. Now, even though we haven't really detected any planets orbiting around this star, and at a distance of 25 light years, it's obviously not very easy to find any planets. In Space Engine, there are quite a lot of planets around it, and we can check them out by clicking this button, and you'll see that they actually differ quite a lot, going from Mercury-like hot deserts to hot Jupiter, something that our solar system doesn't have, to a terrestrial-like planet, but also very hot with a temperature about 150 degrees Celsius, similar to Mercury in a sense, but also a planet that seems to have Earth-like atmosphere and even atmospheric water. So if Vega becomes a little bit cooler, maybe, just maybe, this planet would become more Earth-like. And this is what this planet looks like in Space Engine. Very beautiful, gorgeous looking planet that seems to have Earth-like parameters, but obviously is a little bit too hot for humans to survive. It also has a moon right there. You're going to see the moon in a few seconds as I move away from this object. So there's that moon. It's a hot Selena with no atmosphere, unfortunately. There's also another gas giant with a comfortable temperature of 28 degrees Celsius, and much colder dwarf planets, ice giants, ice worlds, and the last one here is a frozen Titan. Let's actually take a look at this frozen Titan and discover what it looks like as well. This object actually has enough atmosphere for us to survive, but has a temperature of about minus 200 degrees Celsius because it's pretty far away from Vega. And the surface of this planet is absolutely gorgeous. It even has rings orbiting around it. This is a pretty cool object to end this video on. And so anyway, so this is the list of 5 brightest objects in our night sky, and hopefully you learned something from this video, and if you did, don't forget to subscribe, share this video with someone who enjoys watching these videos, and potentially support this channel on Patreon to help this channel grow. Also, check out the videos I mentioned before, where I described some of these stars in a little bit more detail and talked about the significance of those stars in various cultures. Anyway, come back tomorrow to learn something else. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Space out, and as always, bye-bye. And let's finish this video by landing on the surface of Vega 8 and discover what this planet actually has on the surface. Because it looks like it might be liquid water, which kind of makes no sense because the temperature here is so cold. So for all we know, this liquid is actually similar to the liquid on the moon Titan. This might be liquid methane. Pretty awesome. We found a planet with a liquid methane ocean. That's pretty incredible.